You've done it. You've reached C1 level in English, and that is a big achievement. Seriously, you should be proud of yourself. Getting to this level takes a lot of time, effort, and commitment. You can understand complex texts, express your ideas clearly, and communicate well in most situations. But now you might be asking yourself, what's next? At C1, many learners feel a bit stuck. You know English well. You speak confidently. People understand you. But somehow, there still feels like a gap between you and sounding truly natural, like a native speaker or a highly fluent professional. It can feel like there's an invisible wall holding you back. This feeling is very common at this level, so you're not alone. Today, we're going to focus on how to get past that wall. The goal is to help you move from very good English to truly exceptional English. We won't waste time on basic grammar or simple vocabulary. This is for advanced learners who want to refine their English, understand the details, and sound more natural, confident, and precise. We'll use a document called C1 Level Tips to help improve your English level as our guide. It's full of practical advice that you can actually use in real life. Our mission is to focus on the most powerful ideas, the ones that really help you break through the C1 plateau. The document covers many areas: conversation skills, vocabulary, fluency, grammar, reading, writing, and even cultural understanding. That may sound like a lot, but don't worry. We'll take it step by step and make everything clear. Let's start with conversation. Conversation is a natural place to begin. At C1 level, you can probably handle textbook dialogues easily. Ordering food, making small talk, or asking for directions feels automatic by now. But real-life conversations are different. Real conversations are messy. They are unpredictable. People interrupt each other, change topics suddenly, or say things indirectly. You can't rely on memorized phrases anymore. You have to think and react in real time. The document strongly emphasizes this point. It says that C1 learners should practice realistic, spontaneous conversations. This means putting yourself in situations where you don't know exactly what will be said next. Think about moments like a job interview where the interviewer asks an unexpected question, a debate where you must defend your opinion immediately, a discussion where opinions are emotional or sensitive, a negotiation where every word matters. These situations require flexibility, nuance, and confidence. A realistic example. The document gives a helpful example, a conversation between two people, Alex and Maria. They are discussing an ethical problem at work. This is something many people face, and there is no clear right or wrong answer. Alex suggests that maybe slightly bending the truth could help the company. Maria responds carefully. She says, "That's a tough call. I believe in transparency, but in competitive markets, some might argue it's strategic rather than deceptive." This response is powerful because it shows balance. Maria understands both sides. She doesn't attack Alex, but she also doesn't fully agree. This kind of thoughtful, nuanced response is exactly what advanced learners should aim for. Advanced phrases that matter. The document highlights several advanced phrases used in this conversation, such as, "That's a gray area," shows the issue is complex. "I see where you're coming from," shows understanding. "Let's agree to disagree," ends conflict politely. "If I were in your shoes," shows empathy and imagination. These phrases are not just fancy expressions. They help manage relationships, show emotional intelligence, and make you sound more natural and human. However, the goal is not to memorize them and use them randomly. The real skill is understanding when and why to use them. They help you respond thoughtfully and smoothly in real conversations. How to practice effectively. So how can you actually improve this skill? The document suggests a very practical exercise. Record yourself. Choose a topic, such as an ethical dilemma, a current news issue, or a social question. Speak freely, as if you were in a real conversation. Then listen to the recording carefully. Ask yourself, did I sound natural? Did I hesitate too much? Did I use varied language? Could I have expressed my ideas more clearly or politely? This kind of self-analysis is extremely powerful. It helps you notice habits you might not be aware of and pushes your English to the next level. When you listen back to your recordings, it's important to ask yourself some honest questions. Where did I hesitate? Where did I struggle to find the right words? Could I have explained my ideas more clearly, or maybe in a more polite or subtle way? Were there moments where I could have used more advanced expressions instead of simple ones? This kind of reflection is extremely valuable. It helps you become more aware of how you actually speak, not just how you think you speak. And the good news is that there are tools that can help you with this process. Platforms like VoiceThread and SpeakPipe allow you to record yourself easily and listen back with fresh ears. Some even let others give feedback. This kind of objective feedback is especially useful for improving spontaneous speaking, which is one of the hardest skills at the C1 level. Vocabulary, moving from wide to deep. Now let's move on to vocabulary, which is another major focus at the C1 level. By now, you probably already know a lot of words. You're not struggling with basic vocabulary anymore. You can express yourself in most situations without stopping every few seconds to think of a word. However, at this level, improvement is no longer about learning more and more random words. It's about depth, not just size. It's about how well you understand the words you already know and how naturally you can use them. The document makes this very clear. Learn words in context, not in isolation. This means moving away from long vocabulary lists and flashcards with single words and translations. Those methods can help at lower levels, but at C1, they are not enough. Words do not live alone. They usually appear with other words. These natural word partnerships are called collocations. For example, we say strong coffee, not powerful coffee. We say bitter disappointment, not sour disappointment. Native speakers don't think about these combinations, they just sound right. But for learners, they must be noticed and practiced. Then there are idioms, which are expressions whose meaning is not literal. Phrases like kick the bucket or spill the beans don't make sense if you translate them word by word, but they're very common in real English. Understanding and using idioms correctly can make your English sound much more natural. Another important concept is connotation. This is the emotional feeling a word carries. For example, cheap and inexpensive have similar dictionary meanings, but cheap often sounds negative, while inexpensive sounds more neutral or positive. Knowing these subtle differences helps you choose the right word for the right situation. A practical way to build better vocabulary. So how can you improve your vocabulary in a smarter way? The document suggests using thematic vocabulary clusters. This means grouping words by topic instead of learning them randomly. When words are connected by a theme, your brain remembers them more easily. For example, in the topic of business and innovation, you might learn words and phrases like disruptive innovation, scalable model, market saturation, profit margin, competitive edge. Instead of memorizing these words separately, you build a kind of mental map where they are all connected. But the most important step is to see these words in action. Take the phrase disruptive innovation. The document explains that it means an innovation that creates a new market or completely changes an existing one. Then it gives a real example, Uber. Uber changed the transportation industry, so it is a clear case of disruptive innovation. This approach makes the word much more memorable. You're not just learning a definition, you're connecting the word to real life. The same method is used for scalable. It is defined as something that can grow or expand efficiently. Then it's used in a sentence like, the app is scalable and can handle millions of users without performance issues. Again, you see the word in its natural environment. This kind of learning helps you not only understand advanced vocabulary when native speakers use it, but also feel confident using it yourself. Fluency, sounding smooth and natural. Now let's talk about fluency. Fluency is that quality that makes someone sound relaxed, smooth, and effortless when they speak. Fluent speakers don't sound rushed or robotic. Their speech flows naturally. The document gives a very effective tip for improving fluency: imitate native speakers. More specifically, it recommends a technique called shadowing. Shadowing means listening to a native speaker and repeating what they say at the same time, or just a moment after. You can do this with podcasts, interviews, audiobooks, or news reports. This exercise is challenging, and that's why it works. You're not just copying words. You're copying pronunciation, rhythm, intonation, the melody of the voice, pauses, sentence stress, which words are emphasized. All of these elements are essential for sounding natural, and they are often ignored in traditional language learning. Recommended listening sources. The document also suggests some excellent audio sources for advanced learners. For current events, The Daily by the New York Times is a great option. It uses clear, high-quality language and discusses real-world topics. For deep, immersive storytelling, Hardcore History is recommended. It's more challenging but very engaging. And for thought-provoking discussions on economics, society, and human behavior, Freakonomics is another strong choice. These sources expose you to real, high-level English and give you excellent material for shadowing and imitation. Yes, all of these listening resources are challenging, but that's exactly why they are so useful. At the C1 level, you should not avoid difficulty. In fact, you should actively look for it. Listening to authentic, unsimplified English pushes your brain to adapt and grow. This is how real progress happens at an advanced level. The document also highlights the importance of focusing on specific aspects of pronunciation, which are often the final obstacles for advanced learners. These include connected speech, intonation, and sentence stress. Connected speech is how words naturally flow together when people speak. Native speakers rarely pronounce every word separately. For example, "What do you want to do?" often sounds like "what I want to do." This happens automatically in natural speech, and we all do it without realizing it. Learning to recognize and reproduce connected speech can dramatically improve both your listening comprehension and your own fluency. Intonation is another key element. It's the rise and fall of your voice, the music of the language. Intonation adds emotion, attitude, and meaning to what you say. The same sentence can sound friendly, sarcastic, surprised, or serious depending on intonation. Sentence stress is about emphasizing the most important words in a sentence. Native speakers naturally stress key information and reduce less important words. Mastering this helps your speech sound clearer, more confident, and more natural. Tools for improving pronunciation. Luckily, there are many excellent tools to help with pronunciation. Forvo is great for hearing how individual words are pronounced by native speakers from different regions. This is especially useful if you want to compare accents. Youglish is another powerful tool. It allows you to search for a word or phrase and see it used in real YouTube videos. This helps you hear pronunciation, intonation, and context all at the same time. There are also apps like ELSA Speak, which use technology to analyze your speech and give you personalized feedback. These tools can be incredibly helpful for identifying small pronunciation issues that you may not notice on your own. Grammar at the C1 level. Now let's talk about grammar. Don't worry, at the C1 level, grammar is no longer about memorizing endless rules. Instead, it's about mastering subtle structures. These are advanced grammatical forms that allow you to express complex and nuanced ideas clearly and elegantly. We're far beyond basic verb tenses now. Instead, The document focuses on structures such as mixed conditionals, inversion, cleft sentences, and nominalization. Mixed conditionals allow you to talk about hypothetical situations that connect different time periods. For example, if I had taken the job, I would be living in New York now. This sentence links an unreal situation in the past with a result in the present, creating a very precise meaning. Inversion is used to add emphasis by changing the normal word order. For example, never have I seen such an incredible performance. By placing never at the beginning, the sentence becomes more dramatic and powerful. Cleft sentences help you focus attention on a specific part of a sentence. They are often used to highlight what is most important. Although the name sounds complicated, the structure itself is very useful and not difficult to apply once you recognize it. Nominalization is the process of turning verbs or adjectives into nouns. This is common in formal writing and helps make language more concise and objective. For example, the decision to postpone the launch surprised everyone. Instead of saying, "They decided to postpone the launch," the noun decision is used, which sounds more formal and efficient. All of these structures expand your expressive range. They give you more ways to communicate your ideas with precision, clarity, and style. Reading at the C1 level. You are probably already reading in English, which is great. But at the C1 level, it's important to diversify what you read. Don't limit yourself to just one type of text or one topic. The document recommends reading a wide range of materials, such as academic articles, opinion pieces, editorials, fiction, biographies, and even legal or business texts. Each type of text uses language differently, and exposure to these differences strengthens your overall command of English. How you read is just as important as what you read. The document suggests an advanced reading strategy. First, skim the text to understand the main idea. Then, scan for specific details if needed. Highlight new words, but always try to understand them in context, not just through definitions. Finally, summarize each paragraph in your own words. This ensures that you truly understand the text and are actively engaging with it, rather than reading passively. Recommended reading materials. To get started, the document recommends several high-quality sources. One is *Sapiens* by Yuval Noah Harari, a fascinating book with sophisticated language and complex ideas. Articles from The Economist are also recommended for their clear yet advanced analysis of global issues. Essays from The New Yorker are another excellent choice, known for their rich vocabulary and elegant writing style. Writing, refining your style. Finally, let's talk about writing. Writing can be challenging, but at the C1 level, you are already past the basics of grammar and structure. Now the focus is on refinement. It's about making your writing clear, precise, and impactful. At this stage, writing well means choosing the right words, organizing ideas logically, and adjusting your tone to suit the purpose and audience. With practice and attention to detail, your writing can become just as strong and natural as your speaking. The document's main advice for writing at the C1 level is very clear: edit ruthlessly. This means you should not be afraid to cut sentences, rewrite parts, or completely rearrange your text. At this stage, improvement comes from being honest with yourself and acting as your own toughest critic. The document offers several practical techniques to help with this process. First, focus on sentence variety. If all your sentences have the same length and structure, your writing will sound boring and mechanical. Mixing short and long sentences keeps the reader engaged and makes your writing feel more natural. Second, always be aware of your tone. Your tone should match your purpose and your audience. For example, writing for a university essay, a work email, or a casual blog post all require different levels of formality. Knowing when to sound formal and when to sound relaxed is a key C1 skill. Another important point is paragraph structure. Each paragraph should begin with a strong topic sentence. This sentence clearly tells the reader what the paragraph is about and prepares them for the ideas that follow. Topic sentences act like signposts and make your writing easier to follow. Finally, the document emphasizes the use of linking words and phrases to connect ideas smoothly. Words like consequently, nonetheless, however, and in contrast help your writing flow logically and sound more advanced. The power of editing. A clear example. To show how powerful editing can be, the document includes a before and after example. The original version is very basic. Many people think social media is bad. It makes people feel sad. They compare themselves a lot. This version is understandable, but it sounds simple, repetitive, and disconnected. The edited version is much stronger. Social media can negatively impact mental health by encouraging constant comparison, which often leads to feelings of inadequacy and anxiety. This revised paragraph is clearer, more concise, and more sophisticated. It uses better vocabulary, smoother structure, and more precise grammar. This example shows how careful editing can dramatically improve your writing. Cultural fluency and idiomatic language. Now we come to one of the most challenging and interesting parts of advanced English, cultural fluency and idiomatic language. At the C1 level, sounding natural often means understanding cultural references, humor, sarcasm, and idioms. This can be difficult, especially if you haven't lived in an English-speaking environment. Idioms are especially important because native speakers use them all the time. The document gives clear examples with explanations. One example is bite the bullet, which means doing something unpleasant but necessary. For instance, I didn't want to go to the dentist, but I had to bite the bullet. Another common idiom is the ball is in your court, which means it is your responsibility to make the next decision or take action. I've made my offer. The ball is in your court. Understanding and using idioms like these adds an extra layer of authenticity to your English. They make your speech and writing sound more natural and culturally aware. A practical daily C1 routine. After covering conversation, vocabulary, fluency, grammar, reading, writing, and cultural fluency, the document brings everything together with a practical daily routine. This routine shows how you can work on all these skills in a balanced and realistic way. The suggested daily C1 English routine includes 15 minutes reading news aloud, using sources like the BBC or The Guardian. 10 minutes reviewing vocabulary, using tools like Quizlet or Notion. 20 minutes shadowing podcasts, using platforms such as Spotify or Audible. 15 minutes writing, such as journal entries, with help from tools like Grammarly or Hemingway. 15 minutes speaking, using language exchange apps like HelloTalk or Tandem. This routine works like a workout plan for your English. You don't need to do everything perfectly. What matters most is consistency. A little practice every day leads to real improvement over time. Final takeaway. The key message of the document is that reaching C1 is not the end, it's the beginning. You've already climbed one mountain, but now you're entering a whole new range. Progress at this level comes from refining details, challenging yourself, and paying close attention to how English is really used. The document ends with a powerful reminder. Fluency isn't about speaking faster. It's about speaking better. That idea captures everything. True mastery comes from quality, not speed. By building small daily habits and staying curious, you can continue growing and become the best possible version of yourself in English. At the end of the day, this question isn't just about work. It's really about the kind of life you want to live. It's about how you want to earn your money, how much freedom you want, how you deal with stress and uncertainty, and what matters most to you personally. In many ways, this decision is more of a lifestyle choice than just a career choice. For this deep dive, We're using a very helpful guide designed for advanced English learners. But what's interesting is that the ideas in this guide are not only useful for language learning. Even if English is your first language, the insights are still very relevant. Anyone who is thinking seriously about their future career can learn something from it. So, where do we start? To compare these two paths properly, we first need to be clear about what they actually mean. What is entrepreneurship? According to the guide, entrepreneurship means creating, developing, and running your own business. Of course, profit is one of the main goals, but it's not just about money. Entrepreneurship is also about spotting opportunities, seeing problems that others have ignored, and finding ways to solve them. Entrepreneurs often take risks, think creatively, and build something from nothing. The guide gives a great example: a woman who turned her passion for baking into a successful online business. This shows how entrepreneurship can allow people to transform personal interests into real, profitable projects. What is traditional employment? On the other hand, traditional employment usually means working for an existing company. This is the typical 9-to-5 job. You receive a regular salary, you have a defined role, and your responsibilities are clearly set by your employer. The guide gives an example of someone who prefers traditional employment because of the stability and benefits it offers. For many people, knowing what to expect each month and having job security is very important. This sense of predictability can be a major advantage. So essentially, the choice is between building your own system or working within an existing one. Comparing the two paths. The guide becomes especially useful when it compares entrepreneurship and traditional employment across several key factors. Risk. Risk is one of the biggest differences between the two paths. Entrepreneurship involves high risk, especially at the beginning. You invest your own time, energy, and often your own money into something that might fail. There are no guarantees, and that can be very stressful. Traditional employment, by comparison, usually involves lower risk. You're not investing your own money, and you receive a steady income. That said, it's not completely risk-free. Jobs can be affected by economic changes, company performance, or restructuring. Still, the type and level of risk are very different. Income and money. Money is another major factor. With entrepreneurship, income potential is theoretically unlimited. If your business succeeds, you could earn far more than you ever would in a regular job. However, this comes with uncertainty. Many entrepreneurs earn little or nothing in the early stages, and income can change from month to month. With traditional employment, income is stable and predictable. You know how much you'll earn each month, which makes budgeting and planning easier. The downside is that there is usually a ceiling. Even with promotions and raises, income growth is limited. So again, it's a trade-off: financial security versus financial possibility. Working hours and lifestyle. Work hours also differ greatly. Entrepreneurs often work long and irregular hours, especially when starting out. Nights, weekends, and holidays may all be spent working on the business. Since it's your own project, you feel responsible for everything. Traditional employment usually offers more structured working hours. Many jobs follow a standard schedule, which can make it easier to maintain work-life balance. While overtime does exist, the routine is generally more predictable. Stability. Stability is closely connected to these factors. For entrepreneurs, stability depends entirely on the success of the business. If the business struggles, income and security disappear quickly. Traditional employment tends to offer more short-term stability, with regular paychecks and benefits. However, it is still influenced by external factors like the economy or company decisions. The stability is different in nature, but often feels safer. Creative freedom. Creative freedom is where entrepreneurship really stands out. As an entrepreneur, you're the boss. You make the decisions, choose the direction, and shape the vision of your work. This freedom can be extremely motivating for creative and independent people. In traditional employment, creative freedom is usually more limited. You work within rules, systems, and expectations set by others. Some people find this restrictive, while others appreciate the clear structure. Exactly. As an entrepreneur, you have full control over your vision and how you bring it to life. You decide how things are done, what direction the business takes, and what values guide your work. Everything comes back to you. For many people, this level of control is exciting and deeply motivating. In a traditional job, things are usually different. Of course, it depends on the role and the company, but in general, you work within an existing structure. There are guidelines, brand rules, and company policies that shape how you work. This means less freedom overall, but also clearer expectations. Responsibility. Responsibility is another major difference. As an entrepreneur, you are responsible for everything. Every success and every failure is ultimately on your shoulders. If something goes wrong, there is no one else to blame. This can feel like a lot of pressure, especially in difficult moments. At the same time, many people find this responsibility empowering. It gives their work meaning and a strong sense of ownership. In traditional employment, responsibility is usually shared. You have your own tasks and goals, but you are part of a team. You are accountable for your role, not for the entire company. This can reduce stress and allow you to focus deeply on your specific area of expertise. Career path. Career progression also looks very different in each path. With entrepreneurship, your career path is self-directed. You decide what success looks like, when to change direction, and how fast you want to grow. You create your own opportunities. This freedom can be very rewarding, but it also requires strong self-motivation, discipline, and long-term vision. In traditional employment, career paths are usually more structured. There are clear roles, promotion levels, and expectations. You often know what steps are needed to move forward, which can make planning easier and less stressful. Mindset differences. The guide then looks deeper at the mindset behind each path. Entrepreneurs often have a visionary mindset. They think big, imagine new possibilities, and are comfortable with uncertainty. Risk does not scare them as much. In fact, many thrive on it. Employees, on the other hand, often have a more task-oriented mindset. They focus on efficiency, teamwork, and achieving clearly defined goals. They usually prefer structure, stability, and predictable systems. You could say entrepreneurship is about creating a new path, while traditional employment is about moving successfully within an existing one. Ownership. Ownership is another key difference. Entrepreneurs own their business. It is their creation, and they benefit directly from its success. At the same time, they carry full responsibility when things go wrong. Employees do not own the business. They contribute their skills and time in exchange for pay and benefits. This changes how people think about risk, long-term planning, and motivation. Learning and growth. Learning happens differently in each path as well. Entrepreneurship requires constant self-directed learning. Entrepreneurs often learn by doing, making mistakes, and adapting quickly. Every challenge becomes a learning opportunity. In traditional employment, learning is often more structured. Companies may offer training programs, mentorship, and clear development plans. This guided learning can feel safer and more organized. It's like learning through trial and error versus learning with a roadmap. Networking and work environment. Networking also plays a different role. Entrepreneurs focus heavily on building relationships outside their organization. Clients, investors, partners, and collaborators are essential for business growth. Networking is often strategic and goal-oriented. Employees also network, but usually within the company. Building relationships with colleagues, managers, and other departments can help with collaboration and career advancement. The workplace environment differs too. Entrepreneurs often enjoy great flexibility. They may work from home, cafes, or anywhere they choose. This freedom can be a major advantage. Traditional employment is usually tied to a specific location, such as an office or workplace. This offers routine and stability, but less flexibility. Motivation. Motivation is another important difference. Entrepreneurs are often driven by passion and autonomy. They believe strongly in their ideas and want the freedom to build something meaningful on their own terms. Their motivation is mostly internal. Employees may be motivated by different factors, such as salary, benefits, job security, recognition, and opportunities for promotion. This motivation is often more external, based on rewards provided by the organization. Both forms of motivation are valid. What matters is understanding which type motivates you the most. Another important difference between entrepreneurship and traditional employment is how people plan to move on or exit in the long term. For entrepreneurs, exit strategies often involve building something that can eventually be sold. This might mean selling the business, merging with another company, or growing it to a point where the founder no longer needs to manage daily operations. The goal is often to create an asset that has value beyond the individual who started it. In traditional employment, exit strategies are usually more straightforward. People may retire, resign, change companies, or move into a different role or department. Instead of selling something, they are moving within an existing system or eventually leaving the workforce altogether. This shows how different the long-term mindset is in each path. Entrepreneurs often think in terms of ownership and assets, while employees think in terms of roles and progression. A real-life example, Emma and Liam. To make these ideas more concrete, the guide includes a short dialogue between two friends, Emma and Liam, which helps bring the concepts to life. Liam is the entrepreneur. He values creative freedom and independence and wants to be his own boss. He felt restricted in traditional employment, so he decided to take a risk and start his own digital marketing agency. He had a clear vision and was willing to accept uncertainty in order to pursue it. Emma, on the other hand, is happy in her traditional job. She appreciates the structure, stability, set hours, and benefits. She likes having clear expectations and a manager to guide her work. She also points out that entrepreneurship is not for everyone, which is an important reminder. Interestingly, Emma jokes about possibly becoming an entrepreneur someday. This shows that career choices are not always permanent. People change, priorities shift, and it's possible to move between these paths over time. Key vocabulary from the guide. The guide also includes a useful vocabulary section that fits perfectly with this topic. One important word is autonomy, which means independence or self-governance. Entrepreneurs often value autonomy because it allows them to control their schedules and make their own decisions. Another keyword is venture. A venture is a business project that involves risk. For example, her new venture focuses on green technology. The word captures both excitement and uncertainty. Scalability is especially important in entrepreneurship. It refers to the ability to grow without losing quality or efficiency. A scalable business can handle more customers or users without major problems. On the other hand, consistency is often associated with traditional employment. It means being steady and reliable, such as having predictable income and regular working hours. This stability is very attractive to many people, especially those with long-term responsibilities. The guide also highlights innovation, which means creating new ideas or approaches. Innovation is a key driver of entrepreneurial success because businesses need to stand out in competitive markets. Finally, there is job satisfaction, which refers to how happy and fulfilled someone feels in their work. The guide points out that many people value job satisfaction more than salary, reminding us that money is not always the most important factor. Idioms and phrasal verbs. To help learners sound more natural, the guide also includes common business idioms and phrasal verbs. One example is take the plunge, which means to take a risk and try something new. This perfectly describes someone starting a business. Another common idiom is think outside the box, which means to think creatively and come up with new ideas. This skill is especially important for entrepreneurs who need to stand out from competitors. Wear many hats is an idiom that means having many different roles or responsibilities at the same time. This is very common in startups, where one person may handle marketing, finance, customer service, and management. The phrasal verb set up means to start or establish something, such as setting up a new company or business. Scaling up and business growth. Another useful phrase from the guide is scale up. This means to expand a business so it becomes bigger, stronger, and more successful. For example, the company scaled up operations internationally. This shows growth, ambition, and reaching new markets around the world. Scaling up is often a big goal for entrepreneurs. It represents success, progress, and the ability to reach more people with your product or service. Bringing everything together, pros and cons. To help learners see the full picture, the guide provides a clear summary of the advantages and disadvantages of both entrepreneurship and traditional employment. Entrepreneurship, advantages. Entrepreneurship offers many exciting benefits. You have creative control, meaning you make the decisions and shape your vision. You are your own boss. There is also high income potential, since your earnings are not limited to a fixed salary. Entrepreneurs often enjoy a flexible schedule, which means they are not tied to a strict 9 to 5 routine. They can work when and where it suits them. Another major advantage is the ability to innovate, turning new ideas into real businesses. Entrepreneurship, disadvantages. However, entrepreneurship also comes with challenges. There is often financial uncertainty, especially in the beginning. Income may be irregular, and there is a real risk of losing money. Entrepreneurs often work long and unpredictable hours, which can be stressful. They also need many different skills because they are responsible for many areas of the business. This lifestyle requires resilience, discipline, and strong motivation. Traditional employment, advantages. Traditional employment offers stability. You usually receive a steady paycheck and benefits such as health insurance and retirement plans. There is often a clear career path with opportunities for promotion and professional growth. Employees usually have defined responsibilities, which makes it easier to separate work from personal life. Many people value being able to finish work at the end of the day and fully relax. Traditional employment, disadvantages. On the downside, traditional jobs can offer less freedom and creative control. Income potential is usually limited by salary ranges. Some people also struggle with office politics or company cultures that don't match their personality. There is also the possibility of layoffs, which means no job is ever completely guaranteed. Reflective questions from the guide. To help readers decide which path suits them best, the guide ends with thoughtful questions. One key question is, how do you define success? For some people, success means financial freedom. For others, it means stability, purpose, or making a positive impact. Another question asks, which work style fits you better, structured or flexible? Some people thrive with clear rules and routines, while others need independence and autonomy. Finally, the guide asks, if money were no object, which lifestyle would you choose? This question helps reveal deeper values and long-term desires. Final thoughts on career mindset. The guide contrasts two main mindsets, the visionary risk-taker and the task-oriented team player. Neither is better than the other. Each mindset shapes not only how people work, but how they live their lives. Understanding these differences helps people make informed choices and appreciate the path they are on. A new deep dive: modern relationships in the 21st century. The discussion then shifts to a new topic: how modern relationships have changed in the 21st century. Relationships today look very different from those of the past. How people meet, communicate, and form expectations has changed dramatically. Social media, dating apps, changing gender roles, and global connections have all reshaped romantic relationships. Technology plays a huge role. People now meet online, communicate instantly, and maintain long-distance relationships more easily than ever before. Cultural boundaries are also less rigid, leading to more cross-cultural and international relationships. What defines a modern relationship? One of the most important characteristics of modern relationships is flexibility. Relationships today are often less rigid and more adaptable. People are more open to redefining roles, expectations, and timelines. There is also a stronger focus on individual identity. Many people want relationships that support personal growth, independence, and emotional well-being rather than following traditional rules. Language has evolved as well. New labels and terms reflect changing attitudes toward commitment, identity, and partnership. These words help people describe relationships that don't always fit traditional categories. Looking ahead. By examining both careers and relationships, the guide encourages reflection on how modern life values choice, freedom, and self-awareness. Whether it's choosing a job path or defining a relationship, the key message is the same: understanding yourself leads to better decisions. And with that, the deep dive comes to a close, leaving readers with plenty of ideas to think about as they navigate work, relationships, and life in the modern world. In modern relationships, roles are no longer fixed the way they were in the past. In older models, people were often expected to behave in certain ways based on gender and social rules. Today, this is very different. In modern partnerships, roles are usually discussed and decided together by the people in the relationship. Couples talk about who does what feels fair, and what works best for them as individuals. There is no single rule that applies to everyone. Another very important part of modern relationships is communication. Open and honest communication is essential. This includes something called emotional intelligence, which means being able to understand your own emotions and your partner's emotions. It also means responding with care, empathy, and respect. Modern relationships focus less on following traditional scripts and more on truly understanding each other's emotional needs. Along with communication, modern relationships place a high value on individual autonomy. This means that people try to keep their own identity while still being connected to their partner. Instead of losing themselves in a relationship, individuals are encouraged to grow, have their own interests, and maintain independence. The goal is connection without losing your sense of self. Another major change is the greater acceptance of diverse relationship types. Today, there is much more visibility and social acceptance of different kinds of relationships. This includes same-sex couples, non-traditional family structures, long-term partnerships without marriage, and other forms of connection. In the past, relationships often followed one strict model, but today there is much more variety and flexibility. When we compare modern relationships to traditional ones, the differences are clear. In earlier generations, marriage was often seen as a social and economic necessity rather than a personal choice. Gender roles were usually very clear. Men were expected to be providers, and women were expected to manage the home. Divorce was often taboo and legally difficult, and relationships followed strict social rules. Courtship was formal, public, and often required family approval. In contrast, modern relationships are usually driven by emotional compatibility and personal fulfillment. People focus more on how a relationship feels rather than how it looks to society. Today, we see many different family structures, such as blended families, single parents by choice, couples who live together without marrying, and people who delay marriage or choose not to marry at all. These choices are now widely accepted and rarely questioned. Modern relationships are also far more inclusive. There is greater recognition and respect for different sexual orientations and gender identities. This shift has changed how people think about love, commitment, and partnership. Even the idea of finding the one has changed. In the past, many people believed in a soulmate, a perfect match chosen by destiny. Today, that idea has evolved. Instead of waiting for fate, people focus on compatibility, shared values, and mutual effort. Relationships are seen as something that is actively built, not something that simply happens. Love is still meaningful, but it requires intention, communication, and work. Technology has also played a huge role in shaping modern relationships. Dating apps and online platforms have completely changed how people meet. These tools remove geographical limits and allow people with similar interests or values to connect, even if they would never meet in daily life. This has created many new opportunities for connection, especially for people with niche interests or lifestyles. However, this digital dating world also comes with new challenges and new language. One common term is swipe culture, which comes from dating apps where users swipe left or right to reject or accept potential matches. This encourages very fast judgments based on limited information, such as photos and short profiles. While this makes dating more efficient, it can also reduce patience and depth, leading people to move on quickly instead of taking time to truly know someone. Another common term is ghosting. Ghosting happens when someone suddenly stops all communication without explanation. They do not reply to messages or calls and completely disappear. This can be confusing and hurtful, especially because it leaves the other person without closure. Overall, modern relationships are more flexible, inclusive, and emotionally focused than traditional ones. They offer more freedom and choice, but they also require stronger communication skills, emotional awareness, and intentional effort. Understanding these changes helps people navigate relationships more thoughtfully in today's world. Ghosting can be extremely confusing and emotionally painful. When someone suddenly disappears without any explanation, the person who is ghosted is often left wondering what went wrong. There is no closure, no chance to ask questions, and no understanding of what happened. This experience can feel deeply unsettling and hurtful. People who are ghosted often feel dismissed, unimportant, and emotionally shaken. It can affect their confidence and trust in future relationships. Another troubling behavior in online dating is catfishing, which is even more deceptive. Catfishing happens when someone creates a completely fake online identity. They may use someone else's photos, invent a job, lie about their background, and create an entire false life story. The goal is usually to deceive another person emotionally and sometimes financially. This kind of behavior shows the darker side of online connection. While technology makes it easier to meet people, it also makes it easier for dishonest behavior to happen. Easier connection does not always mean better or more authentic connection. Because there are so many options online, people can sometimes feel replaceable. When there always seems to be someone new just one swipe away, individuals may invest less effort in building deep, meaningful connections. This sense of endless choice can change how people treat one another and how seriously they take relationships. As relationships have changed, the language we use to describe them has also evolved. New types of connections need new words. One term that has become very common is situationship. A situationship is an unclear or undefined relationship. It is usually more than friendship and may involve romantic feelings or physical intimacy, but it is not clearly labeled as a committed relationship. There may be no discussion about expectations or the future. For some people, this can feel exciting and low pressure. For others, it can cause stress, confusion, and heartbreak, especially if both people do not want the same thing. Another important term is open relationship. An open relationship is one where both partners clearly agree that they are allowed to have other sexual or sometimes romantic relationships outside their main partnership. The key element here is mutual consent. Both people know about the arrangement and agree to it. Boundaries are usually discussed carefully, and these boundaries can look very different from one couple to another. Open relationships challenge the traditional idea of monogamy, but are based on honesty and communication. Polyamory goes a step further. Polyamory refers to having multiple loving and emotionally committed relationships at the same time, with the full knowledge and consent of everyone involved. Unlike some open relationships that focus mainly on physical connections, polyamory emphasizes emotional bonds and long-term commitment with more than one partner. It reflects the belief that it is possible to love multiple people deeply at the same time. These new terms show how language is adapting to match the many ways people form relationships today. They also suggest that many people are questioning old rules and trying to design relationships that better suit their personal values and needs. Relationships are becoming more intentional rather than simply following tradition. Another area that has changed significantly is gender roles within relationships. In the past, relationships were often shaped by rigid and unequal gender expectations. Traditional models were usually patriarchal, meaning men held most of the power and authority. Men were expected to lead, earn money, and make decisions, while women were expected to manage the home and care for others. These roles were rarely questioned. In modern relationships, especially those that aim to be egalitarian, meaning based on equality, these rigid roles are being replaced. Responsibilities are now more often shared and negotiated. Couples decide who does what based on skills, preferences, time, and fairness rather than gender. Chores, finances, parenting, and major decisions are more equally divided. This shift reflects a deeper change toward relationships built on mutual respect, shared effort, and partnership. Instead of one person having more power because of gender, both partners contribute in meaningful ways. This kind of balance requires strong communication, emotional awareness, and cooperation. It connects closely to emotional intelligence, which plays a key role in maintaining healthy modern relationships. Overall, modern relationships are more complex, flexible, and emotionally demanding than those of the past. They offer more freedom and choice, but they also require honesty, clarity, and emotional maturity to navigate successfully. Yes, emotional intelligence plays a big role here too. Being emotionally intelligent means being able to truly see and value your partner's perspective. It means recognizing their needs, strengths, and feelings without filtering everything through outdated ideas about gender roles. Instead of thinking, "This is how a man should act," or "This is how a woman should behave," modern relationships focus on seeing each other as complete individuals. Each person brings their own skills, experiences, and viewpoints, and those differences are respected rather than restricted by old social rules. As the world becomes more connected, globalization is also shaping how relationships form and function. Today, cross-cultural relationships are much more common than they were in the past. Because travel is easier and online communication is widespread, people are increasingly meeting and falling in love with partners from different countries and cultural backgrounds. These relationships can be incredibly enriching. They allow people to learn new ways of thinking, experience different traditions, and broaden their understanding of the world. However, cross-cultural relationships also come with unique challenges. One of the most obvious challenges is language. Even when both partners speak a shared language, such as English, subtle meanings, humor, cultural references, and emotional expressions can be misunderstood. Small differences in how words are used can lead to confusion or unintended hurt feelings. Beyond language, there are deeper cultural differences to navigate. Partners may have different values, beliefs, and expectations about family, relationships, social behavior, and daily life. For example, ideas about independence, family involvement, communication styles, or even time management can vary widely between cultures. These differences require patience, openness, and a willingness to learn from one another. There are also practical challenges. Cross-cultural couples often have to deal with complicated logistics, such as visas, immigration rules, and long-distance relationships. They may need to decide where to live, whose country to settle in, and how to balance both cultures in their shared life. These decisions can be stressful and emotionally demanding. To manage these challenges, couples often need strong intercultural communication skills. This means being able to communicate respectfully and effectively with someone from a different cultural background. It involves listening carefully, being aware of cultural differences in communication, and adapting your behavior when necessary. It also means being sensitive and open-minded rather than defensive when misunderstandings occur. Sometimes, cultural differences can lead to cultural clashes. These happen when deeply rooted values or norms conflict with one another. When this occurs, couples need to work together to resolve disagreements through honest discussion and compromise. In some cases, one partner may go through a process called assimilation, which means gradually adapting to the customs and lifestyle of their partner's culture. This can be a major personal and emotional adjustment and may take time. All of this shows how strongly culture shapes our views on love, intimacy, family, and relationships. Much of what we believe feels natural, but it is often deeply influenced by the culture we grew up in. Since we have covered many concepts, it is helpful to briefly review some key vocabulary related to modern relationships. One important term is cohabitation, which refers to couples living together without being married. This has become increasingly common, either as a step before marriage or as a long-term choice on its own. Another key idea is emotional intimacy. Emotional intimacy describes a deep sense of closeness built on trust, openness, and mutual understanding. It develops when partners feel safe sharing their thoughts, fears, and feelings with one another. A crucial part of emotional intimacy is vulnerability. Vulnerability means being emotionally open and honest, even when it feels uncomfortable or risky. Without vulnerability, it is very difficult to form deep and meaningful connections. On the other hand, there are patterns that are considered unhealthy, such as codependency. Codependency occurs when one person becomes overly emotionally dependent on their partner. In these situations, someone may constantly put their partner's needs above their own, lose their sense of independence, and feel responsible for the other person's emotions. This imbalance can prevent personal growth and damage the relationship over time. Finally, it is important to return to the idea of compatibility. In modern relationships, compatibility is not about finding a perfect soulmate who magically fits every expectation. Instead, it refers to how well two people can coexist. Compatibility involves shared values, similar life goals, emotional understanding, and the ability to communicate and resolve conflict together. It is something that is built and developed over time, not something that simply appears on its own. Overall, modern relationships are shaped by emotional awareness, cultural openness, and intentional effort. They offer more freedom and choice than ever before, but they also require maturity, communication, and a willingness to grow together. Compatibility, in the modern sense, means being able to live together harmoniously and build a satisfying life as a team. It is about sharing enough core values, such as honesty, respect, and similar priorities in life. It also involves having life goals that align well enough, even if they are not exactly the same. Shared interests can help, but they are not essential. What matters most is having enough common ground to face challenges together and to support each other's personal growth. Compatibility does not mean being identical or thinking the same way about everything. In fact, differences are natural and often healthy. What truly matters is the ability to understand and respect those differences. Compatible partners are able to communicate openly, work through disagreements constructively, and move forward together rather than against each other. It is about finding a balance where both people feel valued, heard, and supported. This discussion has given us a very detailed look at how relationships have changed over time. One thing that made these ideas especially clear was the use of real-life examples in the source material. Conversations like Emily and Liam discussing the pros and cons of dating apps, Sarah and Mark negotiating more equal roles in their relationship, and Nadia and Jake navigating the joys and challenges of a cross-cultural partnership helped bring these concepts to life. These examples showed how modern relationship trends and vocabulary are not just theories, but real experiences people deal with every day. As we come to the end of this deep dive, the main takeaway is that modern relationships are dynamic and constantly evolving. They are not fixed or rigid. Instead, they are shaped by changing social norms, shifting cultural values, and especially by the powerful influence of technology. Relationships today look very different from those of previous generations, and they will likely continue to change in the future. Understanding these changes is not just an academic exercise. It has real value in everyday life. It helps us better understand the wide variety of ways people form connections. It encourages empathy by reminding us that there is no single correct way to build a relationship. It also improves cultural awareness and helps us communicate more effectively with others, especially in a world where relationships increasingly cross cultural and national boundaries. Perhaps most importantly, this understanding gives us insight into the fundamental human needs that relationships are meant to fulfill, such as connection, security, understanding, and growth. When we are more aware of these needs, we can express them more clearly and respond more thoughtfully to the needs of others. The source material ends with a powerful quote: "Relationships are less about finding the right person and more about becoming the right person." This idea challenges the traditional belief that success in relationships depends on discovering a perfect partner. Instead, it shifts the focus inward. It suggests that healthy, fulfilling relationships grow out of self-awareness, emotional maturity, and personal development. Rather than passively searching for the one, we are encouraged to actively work on ourselves. So, as you reflect on everything discussed here, flexibility, communication, technology, new relationship labels, cultural differences, it is worth asking yourself an important question. What does it mean for you to become the right person in today's relationship landscape? What qualities do you want to develop? What values do you want to live by? And how can you show up in relationships in a way that creates deeper, more meaningful connections? These are not easy questions, but they're worth thinking about. Modern relationships may be complex, but they also offer more opportunity than ever for growth, understanding, and genuine connection.